Hey everyone, what's going on? Just want to make a quick video here. It's interesting. The other night I made this video about Chet Hanks and the all-seeing eye, and I talked about Illuminati symbolism within TV shows and movies and so on. And then the next night, I believe it was, or the next time I made a video, I made this video about Prince Charles. And while I was uploading it, it was late at night, and since my daughter doesn't have school, she apparently thinks she never has to sleep. And she came back downstairs probably like 1 in the morning and said she couldn't sleep. And I was just like, well, whatever, you don't have school. So whatever, you can stay awake. Just don't tell your mom that I let you stay awake. And I was sitting there trying to upload this video, and she pauses the TV and she says, "Hey, Dan, look, look what I just saw on SpongeBob." And I've been teaching her a lot about this knowledge, and she's only 9 years old, but she's really questions a lot of things anymore, and she notices a lot of these things in all of these cartoons that she loves. And it's just interesting that she stopped and pointed this out to me, and it was only just a couple days after I had talked about all of this Illuminati symbolism and films and whatever else. But moral of the story, she's watching SpongeBob, and most people, I wouldn't even have caught this. Honestly, I don't think I would even caught this. But SpongeBob, he goes into some type of cave and he comes out, and there's these jellyfish swimming, and the jellyfish all of a sudden swim into the infinity symbol. And then it skips over and it says like 3,000 years later, and then SpongeBob comes back and they got these creatures floating around all over, right? So she told me to look at the infinity symbol. She goes, "Look, the infinity symbol." And I said, "That's pretty interesting." And she started watching it some more, and I went back to my uploading the video. And then she's like, "Hey Dan, look at this, the third eye, and it's even in a triangle." Right? She's like, "It looks in the shape of a pyramid. It's got the three eyeballs, just like how you're talking about the pyramid with the eyeball on it," and so on. And I proceeded to show her this episode of SpongeBob, because there's this episode. Supposedly, they're doing a play on the Illuminati, or I don't know what the episode's fully about, but I've seen it a few times. And it's got Squidward here with his eyeball on his hat, and then they got the pyramid and so on. And she's like, "Oh, I've seen that episode before too. And no big deal. It's just interesting, this infinity symbol, and then this third eye and the triangle symbolism. It reminds me a lot of what I talked about in that last video, where on Ben 10 they have this triangle with the eye and the infinity symbol. And, on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, how they have the triangle with the eye and the infinity symbol. And then SpongeBob sneaks this infinity symbol in there right before they give you the triangle with the eyeball, right? So pretty clever. And it's awesome that my 9-year-old daughter can actually see this, unlike, you know, most other people in the world. But anyway, we go back and she just starts watching TV again. And, we talked a little bit and I explained some things to her. And just a few minutes later, this episode gets over and she's like, "Look at this. I saw some more eyeballs." And as the episode was over, they did some promotion for this new show called Ollie's Pack. And she pointed out inside the A here, it has an eyeball hidden in it. And then this backpack right here that they put a bunch of emphasis on this episode has it's not necessarily an eyeball, but it looks a lot like, something like this, like that, right? Reminds you of an eyeball. And then they got this eyeball hidden here. And then the next little scene, it has the triangle on the door, and it has this dragon dinosaur looking thing in the shape of a triangle. And at the very end of it, and for some reason the little video I recorded here won't play it. At the very end of it, they focus everything into the shape of an eyeball, and then it like zooms out and it says, "New series, Ollie's Pack," and you can see the eyeball here. And then I proceeded to show her the logo for CBS and how it's an eyeball. And I wish I could play this video. It just won't play. But right after that promo for this TV show was on, it says, and now for a moment of mindfulness, right? Like, it's just hilarious, you know? Programming little kids a moment of mindfulness after they give you all of this eyeball programming hidden in plain sight, you know? That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about in this video, but I do have some other interesting things with my daughter Claire, because I'm telling you, this girl was made for this knowledge. I've known this for a long time, but she's always asked me, like, really interesting things, and she really has always questioned things. Like, we were watching Frozen a long time ago, and she said, you know, this doesn't make any sense. She said, if Princess, whatever the princess's name is, Elsa maybe? Princess Elsa, if everything she touches freezes, how come her gloves don't freeze? And I said, you know, that's a good point. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, does it? I said, maybe the gloves are some just magic gloves, and that's why they can't freeze or something, you know? And it's just, it's great that she actually uses her brain and can think outside of things. And it really had nothing to do with me, because I never really talked that much about this to her until recently. So she's really interested in the numbers aspect of it as well, even though she doesn't fully grasp what I'm talking about, but she finds it really interesting, and she really hates math, and it makes math a lot more fun for her. So just pointing it out. But one night I came home, and she came downstairs just freaked out, and I don't know, I can't remember exactly what happened. She was watching this show on YouTube, because she watches a lot of weird YouTube videos, and she said that her phone was off, and then she rolled over, and somehow the phone had completely turned on, and it had this elf, and his mouth was open, and his mouth's never been open. And you know, she watches all kinds of scary stuff, and she's never really been creeped out like she was that night. Like, she was really creeped out that something was going to get her, and this elf was going to get her, and so on. And I knew there had to be something important to why that experience happened to her. So I just looked it up, and it just so happened to be 222 days and also 7 months and 8 days after her birthday. And her name just so happens to equal 78 and 222 at Gematria. So that experience, for whatever reason, was supposed to happen to her. And there was a lot more I explained to her, you know. I'm not going to lie to her and tell her that I don't believe in the supernatural and that I don't believe in ghosts and so on, because I've had multiple experiences with ghosts in my life. And I feel like that's partially part of the reason why I even got into trying to understand the world to begin with, you know. Experiences such as this, you know, seeing UFOs and so on. There's been a lot of ghost experiences in my life, and it really makes a lot of sense, you know, how they test ghosts with like the ultra low frequencies and so on, and all the ghost channels. And then you think about Hermeticism and how everything carries a vibration and so on. And possibly it's not even ghosts, maybe it's something completely different. But when you think about how, you know, everything carries a vibration and signs, symbols, letters, numbers, you know, and it's just really interesting. There's definitely a supernatural thing that does exist, and most people just won't believe it until they've actually experienced it. And for pretty much the majority of my life, I've had crazy experiences like this, you know. I remember seeing this old guy sitting in a rocking chair at my old house, and he was totally, nobody else had ever seen an old guy. The TV used to turn off all the time, you know. One night I was sitting at where my parents' house is now, and I was sitting there with my friend Sturgill, and we were watching Axemen, and all of a sudden we heard, like, it sounded like somebody dropped a bowling ball on the floor behind us, and there was absolutely nobody else in the house. And then we heard a bunch of people, like, things getting rattled on in the kitchen. Sounded like my dad was awake just banging dishes around, and we went out there and nobody was in the kitchen. And one night when I was a kid, I was home alone, and my mom and dad, my dad was at work and my mom was in Omaha shopping for something, and I was probably like 9 or 10 and they left me home, and I heard this loud boom upstairs and I was like, what in the world is that? Who is in the house, you know? And I went upstairs and my whole dresser was just knocked over. Like, how did my dresser just completely fall over by itself when nobody was home? And I noticed that the handles on my dresser look like evil faces. And still to this day, I still have that dresser. I should go take a picture of it because it's creepy. It creeps me out to this day, but you know, after a while I just got used to it and I just don't let it bother me anymore. So whatever, I told her a bunch of stuff and a bunch of experiences, and I wasn't gonna lie to her, but I told her not to be scared about it because, you know, if you understand this knowledge that I'm kind of trying to teach her, you'll understand that you shouldn't be scared of it and so on. So just interesting that it syncs up to her name in Gematria. I also pointed out that her 10th birthday this year is going to be during Tisha B'Av. And that's something that's been real big that we've talked about in recent years. And, you know, the number 10 is important to God and Satan and so on. So just find that pretty interesting. There's also another night, which is interesting. I blog posted this on 2/22, but I was writing up this big thing where I had synchronicity with Zoe Deschanel, or however you say her name, and the movie The Happening. And The Happening equals 201. I was talking about Event 201, and I played a show, and there's a girl there that was there that looks like this girl, and her boyfriend just so happened to, the next time I saw him on Facebook, he was advertising a show that he was playing with a band called the Zoes. So it's just, but, you know, this movie is all about how the plants release some chemicals and kill off the whole world and so on, and much more to that, you know. I saw this movie, it's the only movie I saw when I lived in Arizona, and I saw it with my cousin Wario, whose name's Chris Houston, and his mom has cancer right now, and she was in the University of Nebraska Medical Center that equals 201 in Gematria, and that's where they brought the people with the coronavirus on the Diamond Princess ship to. And so, and he was actually at our band gig that night. He was in town in our band gig when I saw the girl that looked like Zoe Day Channel or Disney Channel or whatever, however you say her name, but he actually came to our gig that night, and legally I don't want to talk about something that went on that night, so, but it was an interesting night with synchronicity. But anyway, I was writing up this blog post and my daughter comes in, she's reading some book, and she's like, have you ever heard of Gertrude Ederle? And I was like, I have no idea who that is. And she's like, she's the first woman to swim across the English Channel and so on, and she is so proud of this lady, you know. And I was like, well, let's look her up in Gematria. And it just so happened that she swam the English Channel on the date of August 6th, which was 78 days before her birthday. Remember, my daughter's name equals 78. And she also died 116 days after the anniversary of her swimming the English Channel. And her name equals 78, and her full name equals 116, synced up to the day that she swam across the English Channel. They also called her the Queen of Waves, that equals 78, and English Channel equals 68, and notice that she was the first woman to swim across the English Channel. She did it on August 6th, which in England they would write it as 6/8, a lot like 68, like how English Channel equals 68, so interesting. But I have a ton of experiences with my daughter, so I'm going to leave it at that. She's had a lot of times where I've actually figured out her synchronicity for her, and, you know, sometimes I wonder if that's part of the reason that I'm actually with her mom and, you know, met her and have been raising her daughter. You know, Claire's my stepdaughter, and I've only known her since she was about 1 year old. But sometimes I just wonder if, for some reason, I'm supposed to teach her more about this knowledge so she can understand the world better or something like that. And who knows, it's just a thought because seems to be the way the world works. Everything happens for a reason, and, you know, who knows. But I'm really happy that she actually enjoys this and sees it. And, someday she might be some awesome esoteric knowledge wizard, that can really explain this to people and change the world. So that's all I really wanted to show. Have a good one. Peace.